but it was produced by the Beat Miners. But Preem did the scratches on there, and yo, I just had fun with the album, man. Like, you know, I was feeling myself a little bit on that album.
You released a melodic "Far From Yours" as the first single. What do you remember most about this time?
Um, I remember getting some flack for that. People talking about it's a sellout record, and I'm like, you know, it has too many scratches on it to be a sellout record or a commercial record, so I didn't understand that. I think it took people a little while to understand Jules. You know what I'm saying? To me, it wasn't no difficult record. It was just, you know, it wasn't Word Life. You know what I'm saying? It wasn't jazzy as Word Life. You know, Word Life was a jazzy record if you go back and listen to it. Jewels was more tapping into the soulful thing. You know what I'm saying? Like, and figuring out where I was going. But here's the thing. Me and Buck did a whole different record prior to that. You know, the Jewels prior to that we lost actually sounded like the My Life album that Mary put out. Every sample she used on there, for some reason, we used it for the Jewels that we actually lost, which was ironic because her record was crazy. That My Life record is probably one of the greatest R&B albums of all time. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And I ended up, like I said, me and Buck ended up using a lot of those samples on that album, and we lost the record. And I always like to say things like, I know why we lost it, because it wasn't meant for us to have that sound, you know what I'm saying? And actually compete with Mary in that sense. You know what I mean? Like, that record to me was special. I know I bumped her record crazy, so I know why, you know, we lost that record. That's how I look at it.
What was some of your best memories of creating that sophomore album?
Just having fun, man. I was traveling a lot, so, you know, and I ain't gonna say nothing to get myself in no trouble now, but, you know, I was doing my thing, man. Like, you know, I was just having fun, man. Like, I was running around. I was running around the states. I was running around the country, and I was just having a good time. So I just put all that energy into that album. You know what I'm saying? And whatever came of it is what came of it. That's how I felt. And I knew something good was going to come out of it.
Was there anything missing on this album? Maybe a guest appearance, maybe a producer you wanted to work with? Is there a fun fact you can tell us about this album that we may not know?
Nah, like, yo, what you see, what you hear is what you got. Actually, ain't no fun fact for me, but you know, I got robbed in B-more in Baltimore for the chain on that album cover. You know what I'm saying? Like, I was at the wrong place, in the wrong place at the wrong time, and me and my dudes got robbed. So, you know, I took the picture for the album cover prior to that, and I didn't even own the chain after that no more. We got robbed in B-more for the shit. So that's the irony in it. You know what I mean?
When
Yeah.
that album finally touched down, what was the reception like for Jewels?
By this time, people know who I was, but people was, like I said, man, for me, it was a slow burn. You know, when I said 10 years early on in the interview, I meant for Word Life and Jewels, because it was a 3-year gap, you know, when the second album came out. It took people a while to understand who and what I was and what I was doing. And I wasn't trying to sound like nobody. I wasn't trying to be super smart. I wasn't trying to be, you know, this. I just went off of feeling and emotion when I made music, and hopefully it resonated towards people, with the people. And yo, like I said, some people would talk shit and say, nah, it took a people a while to be like, yo, he's nice. And I was like, damn, y'all just now getting that? Like, after 5 albums or 3 albums, like, y'all just now getting that, man? And, you know, everybody's journey is different. That's just how it is, man.
Right. Initially, was that Payday deal just the one album? And what eventually happened to your situation at Payday?
It just ain't. It wasn't conducive to what I was trying to do, man. Like, it wasn't no hard feelings when I left or anything like that, but they just they didn't understand. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm gonna say this. Oh, let me go back. Yeah, I did a record with Hove on that album that didn't make Jewels, but it made Bon Appetit later on, which was Bonafide. That was a Jewels album cut.
Okay.
It's just that I held on to it, and um, I remember Buck nudging me to get Jay to do a verse, and I was like, nah, I don't want him to do a verse. I just heard him doing the chorus, and I remember Payday saying that that was the single after they didn't do shit for me and didn't get Jay-Z off of Hard Knock Life to like this was my man. You know, Dame was my man. So, you know, I just held on to the record. I felt like maybe one day I'll get Jay to do a verse to it, or I'll just hold on to it for another project. So that was probably the biggest thing, as far as features that I had going for me, but I just held on to it. Nobody knew about the record yet.
Right. There's about a 4-year hiatus for OC between Jewels and Bon Appetit. What's going on with you throughout these 4 years?
Finding myself, man. I'm a young dude back then. I'm in my mid to late 20s, just trying to find myself, trying to find my way in a business that, none of us had an education on. Like, it's a hands-on education being in the music business to this day. You know what I'm saying? And just finding myself. I know, when that album was done, put it like this, nobody was when I put me and Buck put that album together, I don't think the crew liked the album at first. We did the same thing I told you we did with Jewels. We recorded a bunch of joints that people probably never hear or never heard. And the crew's like, nah, that ain't it. You know what I'm saying? So we scratched the record, the whole record, and did Bon Appetit from what y'all hear today. And then everybody was like, that soul shit it's a soulful album, and I'm just like, what does that mean? You know what I'm saying? Make a long story short, after the fact, you had The Blueprint by Jay-Z. A few years later, you had Kanye with all this soulful shit, which is dope. Rick Ross, you got all of these people, all of these players doing this soulful stuff. And I'm not saying that's something I invented. I didn't invent it at all. It was just that I felt like, give me a little credit, man. Like, I was ahead of my time with this. I was doing, things that people probably sold millions of records off later on, but people just didn't have the vision to see, or stand with me on that. You know what I'm saying? And honestly, man, in hindsight, like I said, it's no education on the business. If I knew then what I knew now, I would have probably just stood on my pivot and been like, I ain't trying to hear what nobody say. I'm gonna push this 1,000,000%. And I didn't get behind the record, but to me, it's probably one of my best records.
Right. In hindsight, was it a good idea to keep that Jay-Z record for Bon Appetit, or do you wish you would have used it on Jewels?
I don't know. See, you asking questions I never even thought about. Like, I never thought about that. Like, think about this, man. Jay was charging what, 100,000, something like that, just for him to be on a record with you. I got him for free. I got him right off the Hard Knock Life tour. You know what I'm saying? I ran into Dame in the Universal building, and I'm like, Jay changed his number, and Dame is like, what's up? And I'm like, I got an idea. He like, come on, man. Like, he'd be off the tour in the next couple of days. I have him in the studio, and we spoke, and he came in the studio. And that's something that you can't buy. That's something you can't, it has to be a mutual respect, man. So, you know, I big J up to this day for that, man. Like, he didn't have to do that, but, you know, people don't understand. Me and this dude used to, you know, run around a little bit. I used to go to his shows and be on the side of the stage with him and his cousin Beehive most, you know, for those shows. And he would ask me to come on the stage, and I'd be like, nah, I'm good. You know, I'm watching. Like, I just want to watch. And, you know, I believe they put up a clip a while ago of me freestyling with him on stage. And that was probably the only time I came out on one of his shows, and it was just like, cool. You know what I mean? I might have been feeling the vibe crazy that night and said, fuck it, I'll come out. Just, you know, just this night, though.
Right. What's the story behind Starchild?
As far as what?
Being released in Japan. There's just so many stories behind it. What's the original story behind the release of Starchild?
I did this record. I did that record with this brother named Marlon out of Baltimore. I mean, out of Boston, and that was a connect through my partner AG. You know what I'm saying? AG and them was doing music with this guy up in Boston. I mean, he was an unknown at the time, and he, you know, as far as, you know, his label and his imprint or whatever, but, you know, it was, this is how I make my money. This is what people don't understand. I do independent projects. I do projects with my group. I do projects according to what I feel. I do projects for financial situations. And he offered a lucrative financial situation to me, and he paid me up front for the record. But I felt like the record wasn't finished. And, you know, I held him up as much as I could, but at the end of the day, it was his record. He paid me. It was a work for hire. Make a long story short, you know, Japan is one of my biggest markets, if not my biggest market, for digging, period, for OC and DITC members. And I seen a record on import on the shelf. You know what I'm saying? No, matter of fact, I'm lying. I seen it after somebody came up to me to sign the record. And I was like, Starchild, like, and, you know, end up finding out he put the record out overseas, but he put out a limited amount of copies. And, you know, I just never promoted the record, but the backlash of that was, it's, or the thing with that record was people ended up digging the record. So I had to perform the record. You know what I'm saying? I had to learn the record. I had to buy the record. I had to tell him to send me a few copies of the record. I had to bootleg the record. I don't care if he hearing this shit either, but, you know, at that time I was just like, damn, like, people ended up it ended up becoming a cult classic to this day. You know,
Right.
and some things you just can't control, man. Like, that record just went crazy, man. I don't know why. You know, I know why, but I just don't know why. Like, it's unfinished to me.
Right. You ended up linking up with the West Coast Hieroglyphic crew for your album Smoke and Mirrors. How did that all take place?
I believe Dom and Tajay got in contact with me and my manager, Mr. Dave. Or they got in contact with Dave, and they got at us about a situation. But in the midst of all that, prior, maybe 6 months to a year prior, I was ready to quit, man. Like, just hang it up. And I hooked up with my man Mike Lowe. You know, he's a family to us, like to DITC and Finesse and Bucky and stuff. And we was just going in his crib doing music. I wasn't telling nobody I was recording. I wasn't telling nobody I was doing an album. We just ended up doing songs. And next thing you know, we had a whole project done. And we was like, oh shit, like, what we gonna do? And I was like, nothing, man. Fast forward, maybe a week or two later, Hiero contacts us. And I was just like, wow, this is weird. Like, you know, we did a record. I did a record on the sneak tip, me and Mike Lowe. And it ended up throwing vibrations out into the universe, and somebody was asking us to do a project on their label, and that was Hiero. And we had, you know, a kinship, a friendship, so you know, it made sense to me to do it. You know what I'm saying? And I just turned in that album to them, and they was like, "You did this just on your leisure?" And I was like, "Yeah, like this is, you know, it was therapy, man." And they was like, "Wow, like we'll take it." You know what I'm saying? I went on that tour. I went on tour with them. You know, they paid me to go on tour, which they was apologizing, which I ain't understand because they paid me a shitload of money for. I guess if I'd have had the project done and they knew about it a year prior, it would have been probably a better situation for me financially. But yo, these guys paid me $1,000 a night just to get on stage for 2, 3 minutes to promote the song. How can you go wrong with that?
Can't.
For 30 dates. You do the math.
Good deal to me.
Great deal.
You're also known for